Hello and welcome to Derby Days, the only show that brings you all the best highlights, analysis and talking points from the biggest derby matches across the world. This week, our industry guests will be casting their eye over the Manchester Derby, Der Klassiker and El Clasico. But first, we're going to be kicking things off with Jose Mourinho. His side travel across town to face Pep Guardiola's Premier League champions.
The 11th day of the 11th month, 100 years on. Silva, sweet turn, Sterling. Attacking Lingard, and feeding it for Bernardo Silva, and David Silva! Silva turns to City goal! What a ball this is. And I thought Shaw was a bit slow reacting. Once it was set up by Bernardo Silva for David Silva, he had time. So he lost 5 times to Mourinho. His team are on the attack now with Aguero and Mahrez. Aguero! He has given that the lot! Bang! 2-0 City. David De Gea back at you. Because I don't think it was the greatest kick from the goalkeeper.
Not worry about blowing these hundreds and fifties, cause when you get caught up in money, it's fake. The happiest thoughts end up going to waste. I got all my people, they holding me down. They all coming with me when I got the crown.
And Lukaku, Ederson, penalty. It's going to be Anthony Martial, the guy who is on a streak. Anthony Martial, 5 in a row, and Manchester United back in the derby.
Yeah, I'm going track to track, trying to
Good the
rap. I never gave it up when they called me
Raheem
back. I gotta
Sterling.
run the game like I'm a running back. I gotta change it up, so you ain't stuck with that. Now give me the
Bernardo
mic and
Silva,
I'm
Ilkay Gundogan settles it. It's blue again.
around the world, meet the fans that put me on. You know we got it, yeah we got it. We gon' fill it up like it's a wallet. We gon' live it up like it's college. We gon' soak it up like it's knowledge, yeah. And I gotta pay homage to
City
my fans and the
simply
fans of the hometown.
superior,
Got the hill going
visibly
up,
so,
we'll be back
palpably
now.
so.
Now, now,
Manchester City 3, Manchester United 1.
Joining us now to talk about that Manchester derby is Jordan Morris, editor of the 92 blog. Jordan, thanks very much for joining us. Now, as a Manchester United fan, let's kick things off with that. A disappointing result and performance for your team in that Manchester derby.
Yeah, I think especially the performance, considering, if you look at the stats before City's first goal, only 11 passes attempted and only 5 of them actually came off in 12 minutes, which is a remarkable stat to hear. And for the rest of the game, it just looked like there was a lack of effort in the team really going forward. Whenever we had the ball, there was no pace. It was very clear that we were missing Paul Pogba in that midfield because the double pivot of Matic and Fellaini is just far too slow if we're trying to play counter-attacking football against an extremely attacking team like City are, and just not getting the ball to the wingers enough. I think Rashford and Martial was starved of the ball all day, and we were extremely lucky with another Ederson mistake that we actually managed to get back in the game and keep it to the deficit to 1 for as long as we actually did.
We'll come on to how good City actually were later in a bit, but from a Manchester United perspective, a lot of people saying that they perhaps feared Man City a bit too much, were a bit too in awe of how they were playing, and that was particularly illustrated with that last goal where they passed the ball around so many times before eventually sticking it in the net. Would you say that was something you noticed?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at not only that, but towards the end of the game, there was the little thing on the sideline with Raheem Sterling doing a load of step-overs. It seemed like for a lot of the game, that moment especially, we just kind of didn't go into the tackle enough. We just let City do what they're so good at, which is just pass the ball around. We just let them play the game they wanted to play without really giving any challenge or any bite in the tackle. If you've got Fellaini and Matic in the team, you'd expect at least one of them to maybe, stick a foot in, just at least try, win the ball back, show their power, but neither of them really did that all day.
How much of that result was Man City being good? How much was it United being poor? Mixture of the two. What do we think?
I think most of it was just City's class. You look at David Silva in the midfield. United have been crying out for a midfielder of that quality for so long, and City have had him for nearly going on a decade now. He is probably one of City's best ever players. It can't really be debated at this point. He's just so smooth on the ball. He's got Bernardo Silva next to him. He's got Fernandinho. We're all just, they know the roles. They all do them extremely well. So obviously, United were poor, but when you've got players of that quality on the other side, we could have been 2-3 times better than we actually were in that game, and probably still would have come out with a defeat.
And how good are City this season as a whole? Are they going to be challenged, or will it be a one-horse title race again?
They are going to be challenged this time. We've seen by Liverpool, who United are playing soon, that they are going to be challenged. So it'll be tougher for them this season. So it'd probably be a much bigger achievement if they managed to retain the title, because obviously they ran away with it last year. No one got close to them. No one's actually retained the title since Man United did it in the 2010-11 season. So for City to beat off the challenger Liverpool this season and to win the title again would be a huge statement to the dynasty that they're essentially building with Guardiola at the moment.
And finally, about Manchester United, what's the aim for them this season? What are the expectations? What must they be now for it to be seen as even a relatively successful season?
Relatively successful season, it kind of has to be top 4 or nothing. It's very out there, considering we're already about 8 points outside of that when there's not even half of the season played yet. But it kind of has to be. We can't really be going through another season of Europa League football, because that's really what derailed Mourinho's first season when we ended up finishing 6th. You kind of just have to go all out for the top 4 now. If we go out in the FA Cup early again, then we can focus more on the league. If we get a favourable draw in the Champions League and go out early again, it's just kind of, we have to focus on the league now. That has to be the priority for United this season. Top 4 or nothing.
Lovely, Jordan. Thanks very much for joining us.
No problem, mate.
Up next, we're off to Germany. Would Bayern Munich be able to turn around their season's fortunes, or would Borussia Dortmund be continuing in their current case of Schadenfreude?
Too many thoughts on my mind, I can't sleep at night, so I just keep writing. I don't need no help, I don't need opinions, so don't waste my time then. I just been living online, my city don't show me no love, and that's fine. Fuck local radio stations, I got more plays than all of these rappers combined. I'm going again, I've been going in, I'm fed up with so many things, I gotta just let it all out. I'm talking about the shit they've been talking about, telling me I should do this, telling me I should do that, telling me things about rap, talking the truth and that stab in my back, that will knock me off track. No, too many things have been building, been hard to deal with, I just been drinking. Remember my moves in the past, I'm wondering what was I thinking. Lately I'm living in fear, wondering what if the end is so near. All of this shit going on, the shootings are strong. One shot to the head and I'm gone. I'm losing control, but I can't let it go, cause I'm trying to get more. And I've been in the moment, I've been in the zone, and I'm moving alone. I don't pick up the phone when my family call. I've been doing it wrong and I don't know what's happening. Trying to get what I just been imagining, getting close and I just been examining all of the fake shit the game has been packaging. I come from a town where most of the people are so close-minded. They go into school and they work in a job, but they don't even like it. I won't be put in a box, nobody telling me what I should rock, nobody telling me what I should drop, cause I do what I want and just know I don't stop. Recording till 4 in the morning, they snoring, I'm pouring my soul into every story. I'm writing, producing, I mix it, I master, I'm building my craft and I'm not looking back. I've been going doing things I wanna do when I want to. Everybody wanna get away, but they not do. Everybody wanna copy you, but they not you. Everybody wanna be cool, but they not new. Whoa, look how I go, gon' be a dentist, I still got the flow. Never gon' lose cause I'm still doing both. Never gon' lose cause I've been on the road. Come to your state and I'm killing the show. Know that I'm young and I still gotta grow. Know that I'm working the most, know I'm never gon' choke. And I'm looking back down on the people below. I've been keeping real, I've been doing what I feel. I've been out here trying to kill every beat, I know I will. Everything I'm working on, every night another song. They've been quiet all along, they gon' notice when I'm gone.
Bundesliga writer at 90 Min, Ben Carter, joins us now to discuss all of that. Ben, thanks very much for joining us. Firstly, what a game. Great advert for the Bundesliga, even though I'm sure some Bayern Munich fans wouldn't agree.
Yeah, no, it's sort of, as a neutral Bundesliga fan, it's the perfect advert for the Bundesliga. The two biggest clubs in Germany going head-to-head. And putting together a game like that, it was end-to-end, non-stop. And I think everyone was quite happy that Dortmund came away with it. Given Bayern's dominance over the last few years, everyone was quite happy to see that last Lewandowski goal ruled out for offside.
I'm sure. What has gone wrong for Bayern this year? I mean, and they've always set themselves such high standards, as you say, always dominating the league. But they haven't lived up to those expectations. What's gone wrong for them?
Well, it's such a difficult question. A lot of things are being pointed at their new manager, Niko Kovac. It's very easy for Bayern to be doing that. We saw it with Ancelotti last year. A lot of the players weren't happy with Ancelotti as soon as results started going badly. Kovac has had the same thing, but if you look at Kovac's record with Frankfurt, there's no doubt he's an outstanding manager. He just needs his time with this squad, and the signs have been there with Bayern. They've got a very old squad, so I don't think it's been something which has just happened this season. They've sort of rode their luck over the last few years. Last year, they were very fortunate to have Dortmund with the awful appointment of Peter Bosz, and then bringing Peter Stöger in. They were never going to be Bundesliga title contenders, but Favre's come in, and Bayern finally have a challenge.
And do you think that will come good in the end for Kovac? Is it just a case of giving him time, or is that something that, being at a club with the expectations like Bayern, he's just not going to get?
Yeah, he should get it. I think most people want him to get it, and I think if he does get it, without a doubt, it will come good for Bayern, and they'll be back at the top. And they've been very unlucky with injuries. So Tolizo's been injured, Coman's been injured. A lot of their better young players, their more mobile players, have been injured. So the likes of Ribéry, Robben, Javi Martinez, Thomas Müller, Jerome Boateng, Mats Hummels, Lewandowski, they're starters, and there's no competition. If they stick with him, things will come good. But Bayern aren't a club who are famed for their patience with head coaches. They're much more of it's not working, so we'll bring in a temporary fix. Although, of course, the person they brought in before, Jupp Heynckes, he is sort of fully retired now, even though he was retired last year as well, and they brought him out of retirement. There's not a chance he'll come back. So I think they almost have to. And there's a lot more pressure now on Uli Hoeneß and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge as well, that they do give Kovac some time.
As for Dortmund, though, what an amazing season they've had so far, flying at the top of the league, and with a new brand of play and some players that are a very different side. They've gone through that period of transition very quickly, it has to be said, and it's producing results on the pitch for them now.
Yeah, it's outstanding the way, like you said, the sort of personnel changes they've made. If you think in midfield, that's completely changed. So Weigl, who was such an important player for them, isn't getting a sniff of first-team action now, whereas Thomas Delaney, who was brought in from Werder Bremen, and Axel Witsel, who came over from China, they have been one of the best midfield partnerships in Europe, undoubtedly. They've been absolutely fantastic. Sprinkled in there is the young players, so Jakob Brun Larsen's finally getting a run in the team. Jadon Sancho, who we're all now starting to get to see, he's just electric. Paco Alcacer up top. These new boys have come in, and the gel that really helps them all together is Lucien Favre. He did an outstanding job when he was at Gladbach. Did a lot of things which I think people weren't expecting him to do. He made a lot of bold things as a manager. Did equally well when he was at Nice most recently, and then he's come in to Dortmund, and they're just absolutely flying. It doesn't look like they're going to be stopped anytime soon.
On that, it seems ridiculous to say at this stage that we're ruling Bayern out of a title race in the Bundesliga, but is that it now? Do you think Dortmund can be caught by anyone, let alone Bayern, or are they pretty much there?
Well, you sort of hit the nail on the head there. It's always dangerous ruling Bayern out, because as soon as you look at the squad and you think they can't do it, then they will inevitably do it. It's that sort of thing. The Bundesliga as a whole is a lot stronger. So Gladbach are doing well, Leipzig are doing well under Ralf Rangnick, but Dortmund are just head and shoulders above everyone. I think the biggest difference isn't necessarily even personnel with Dortmund and Bayern. It's actually just the mentality of the squad and how they all are together. With Bayern, you've got a team of individual players, very good players, but it's all individual players. Whereas with Dortmund, they're all buying into Favre's philosophy, and they're all playing for each other, which will probably prove to be the difference coming into the season.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Ben. Okay, our last but certainly not least derby for today concerns European champions Real Madrid as they take on La Liga holders Barcelona.
Too many thoughts on my mind, I can't sleep at night, so I just keep writing. I don't need no help, I don't need opinions, so don't waste my time then. I just been living online, my city don't show me no love, and that's fine. Fuck local radio stations, I got more plays than all of these rappers combined. I'm going again, I've been going in, I'm fed up with so many things, I gotta just let it all out. I'm talking talking about, the shit they've been talking about. Telling me I should do this, telling me I should do that. Telling me things about rap. Talking the truth and that stab in my back, they will knock me off track. No, too many things have been building, been hard to deal with, I just been drinking. Remember my moves in the past, I'm wondering what was I thinking. Lately I'm living in fear, wondering what if the end is so near. All of this shit going on, the shootings are strong. One shot to the head and I'm gone. I'm losing control but I can't let it go, cause I'm trying to get more. And I've been in the moment, I've been in the zone, and I'm moving alone. I don't pick up the phone when my family call, I've been doing it wrong and I don't know what's happening. Trying to get what I just been imagining, getting close and I just been examining all of the fake shit the game has been packaging. I've been keeping real, I've been doing what I feel. I've been out here trying to kill every beat, I know I will. Everything I'm working on, every night another song. They've been quiet all along, they gon' notice when I'm gone. I come from a town where most of the people are so close-minded. They go into school and they work in a job, but they don't even like it. I won't be put in a box, nobody telling me what I should rock. Nobody telling me what I should drop, cause I do what I want and just know I don't stop. Recording till 4 in the morning, they snoring, I'm pouring my soul into every story. I'm writing, producing, I mix it, I master, I'm building my craft and I'm not looking back. I've been going doing things I wanna do when I want to. Everybody wanna get a win, but they not do. Everybody wanna copy you, but they not you. Everybody wanna be cool, but they not new. Whoa, look how I go, gonna be a dentist, I still got the flow. Never gonna lose cause I'm still doing both. Never gonna lose cause I've been on the road. Come to your state and I'm killing the show. Know that I'm young and I still gotta grow. Know that I'm working the most, know I'm never gonna choke. And I'm looking back down on the people below. I don't stop, recording till 4 in the morning, they snoring. I'm pouring my soul into every story. I'm writing, producing, I mix it, I master, I'm building my craft and I'm not looking back. I've been going doing things I wanna do when I want to. Everybody wanna get a win, but they not do. Everybody wanna copy you, but they not you. Everybody wanna be cool, but they not new. Whoa, look how I go, gonna be a dentist, I still got the flow. Never gonna lose cause I'm still doing both. Never gonna lose cause I've been on the road. Come to your state and I'm killing the show. Know that I'm young and I still gotta grow. Know that I'm working the most, know I'm never gonna choke. And I'm looking back down on the people. Keep it real, I've been doing what I feel. I've been out here trying to kill every beat, I know I will. Everything I'm working on, every night another song. They've been quiet all along, they gon' notice when I'm gone.
Dominant stuff indeed. We've got Jordan and Ben back with us now to discuss that game as well. Firstly, Jordan, let's start with the positive. How good were Barcelona in that one?
Oh, just going forward, they're just the best, probably one of the best attacking teams in Europe. You saw it in that game. You saw it when they played Tottenham at Wembley. They've got so much depth going forward with, you know, the likes of Messi, Suarez, Coutinho, Malcolm, Dembele. They have just the perfect balance of pace and just terrific finishing. I think in that game, it wasn't really a surprise that they ended up winning as easily as they did because of how Madrid have been performing this season.
And on that, Ben, very much a contrast for Real Madrid, a season that's been blighted by negatives, and this is just the latest one of those in quite embarrassing defeat for them.
Yeah, huge negative as well. The media around them hasn't been good this year. I think that's putting it quite politely. And yeah, sort of issues with Lopetegui, issues obviously with Ronaldo leaving, but the biggest shock for them has been their performances on the pitch. Not entirely sure how. Taking Zidane out of the equation, taking Ronaldo out of the equation has got still world-class players. They still have Bale, still have Marco Asensio, Isco, Ramos, Varane, an incredible squad of players, but they look like a mid-table La Liga side, and often it's just individual quality, which is just about getting them over the line at the minute.
And I think it's got to be said that players need to take individual responsibility for that. It's very easy for media or fans to look at the managerial situation that they've had this year and many other factors, but sometimes it just boils down to players who should be doing a lot better and not showing that.
Yeah, completely. I think Gareth Bale's a huge one. There's been a lot thrown at him since he's moved to Madrid, really, where he hasn't quite done what we expected him to do. Even he probably hasn't lived up to what he did in his last season at Spurs. But you're right, it goes through the whole squad. Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, it's almost like those two, they're held in such high regard now that, well, maybe they don't need to be putting in 100%, and maybe they don't need to be performing how everyone expects them to be performing. Casemiro's the same, Marcelo, Dani Carvajal. Every single one of those players really needs a bit of a shake-up.
Yeah, Jordan, what do you think about the futures just for this season, at least, of both of these teams? Certainly look to be contrasting if they continue, but can Real turn it around, or will it be by the end of the season that there'll be a similar gap? Barcelona will be celebrating league success, and Madrid will be languishing behind them.
I think there's still too early in the season. I think Madrid can absolutely, with the quality they have, as Ben mentioned, catch Barcelona. I think Barcelona's biggest worry this season will be their defensive record. If you look already, before it's halfway through the season, they've actually conceded 19 goals, which for a team at the top of the table, considering how good defensively they were last season, is a bit of a worry. I think really the only game last season where you saw the frailties of that defence was the 5-4 defeat to Levante right near the end, whereas this season they were beaten 4-3 at home by Betis. Teams who were actually languishing lower in the leagues are managing to put a few past them. So I think they'll need to shore up that defence. Piqué just isn't looking the player that he once was. Longley, who's coming from Sevilla, just hasn't really put in the performances that were expected of him. Titi's obviously been injured, so you can't really include him in there. But I think Real can absolutely catch him. I mean, there's still, you look at the actual table this season, there's an actual really good title race happening. Sevilla are having an amazing start to the season. Atletico will always be there up and amongst them. So I think it's far too early to kind of guess where these teams will end up at the start of the season, but it's exciting to think about.
And same question, Ben. What do you think about the outcomes of both of these sides, and also if there are any other sides that maybe we don't expect to quite challenge up in those, certainly those top 3 or 4 positions? Do you think anyone will be there come the end of the season to challenge those guys?
I think the same with Jordan. I think Sevilla certainly looking good. They brought in Andre Silva on loan from AC Milan. Something hasn't quite gone right with him at San Siro, but again, he's gone to Sevilla and he's finally living up to the expectations which people had once he left Porto. So Sevilla is certainly an exciting team. But I think you've been really nice to Real Madrid there. I think it's going to be sort of terrifying, the gap between the two sides at the minute. I think Barca are going to cruise to the title. As much as Sevilla might be there, as much as Atletico might be there, and Real Madrid, they really need to buck their ideas up soon. Otherwise, it's not just going to be missing out on Champions League football, could be missing out on Europa League football as well. They're behind Deportivo Alavés at the minute, and we're not halfway through the season, but sort of after 10 games, you start to get a good idea of where teams are going to end up. And sort of a third of the way through the season, if Real Madrid are behind Deportivo Alavés, there's probably an issue going on there.
Certainly would be a big shake-up in European football. Thanks very much for joining us, guys. Now on to Derby Day's debate. We're going to be looking at all the questions that have been raised by those fixtures that we looked at earlier on. Joining me once again are Ben and Jordan to look at those. Guys, we'll start off with the Manchester Derby then. First of all, a point that you raised earlier, Jordan, actually, was it right of Raheem Sterling to show off with those step-overs in the game? Was it a sign of showboating, or perhaps, or have they earned the right to do that, given that the position of the game that they were in? Jordan, why don't you kick us off?
I mean, honestly, as a United fan, I wasn't too bothered by it. I think the way that they'd played in that game, they'd already showboated enough for 90-plus minutes. It didn't really add to anything. I mean, obviously Guardiola wasn't too happy about it because he doesn't want his players to be showing off in a game that big, but I personally wasn't too bothered about it. I just thought they've earned the right, given how well they played, to do it. No real problem with it.
Ben?
Yeah, it was a bit of fun, wasn't it? I think Raheem Sterling only needs to worry about one thing, about who he's impressing, and obviously Guardiola, but he's got to impress the Man City fans, and there's not a single Man City fan that watched that didn't go, yeah, go on Raheem. So yeah, he's done nothing wrong. You're allowed to do it. Mata wasn't too happy with it, and people were saying that if you upset Juan Mata, then you must have done something wrong. But no, it's a bit of fun at the end of a derby that they've absolutely walks all over. If United fans, thankfully Jordan isn't one of these, but if some United fans are more concerned about Sterling doing some stepovers than their performance, then that's probably where they need to be most concerned.
And realistically, if a lot of clubs and players were in the position that they found themselves in a derby with how they were playing, then I don't think many fans of clubs could deny that their players would end up doing a similar thing.
Yeah, I think as a fan you want to see it. So you saw it in the North London derby when Eric Dyer equalised and he put his finger up to the Arsenal fans. Obviously the Spurs fans would have loved that, and then they went on to lose, so now the Arsenal fans love that. It's just a bit of fun. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult, the scenario I'm about to say, to try and imagine is a very difficult thing to think about. If United had won that derby by any chance, and one of our players had done it, we'd be speaking about that for weeks and weeks. We'd be going on about that as if, like, build another statue outside of the stadium for them. So it's not too big of a deal.
On Man United then, from a more general perspective, what can they do to change their season around?
Wow.
Big question.
$1 million
Yeah,
question.
where do we
Yeah.
start?
A good January, maybe, would be absolutely lovely.
But haven't we said this for a long time with United? And it's not like they've been short on spending money. And Mourinho's now got players that are his own, yet still doesn't feel comfortable with a lot of them.
It seems like we've never been short on spending money, but we have been short on spending money in the right places. We've needed a centre back for so long because the Smalling and Jones partnership died about as quickly as it began. We've needed a right winger since Nani left in 2014 or 2015. So as long as we actually spend money in the right positions, I think we can have. I'm not going to try and make predictions where we're going to finish, but we can have a better second half of the season, and the performances can hopefully pick up a bit. I mean, the Fulham game was a nice start. Obviously, the bottom of the league, they're conceding a lot. But going into the big game against Liverpool at the weekend, we needed a performance like that with Lukaku getting a goal, Rashford actually running at players again, like when he first started playing for us. So I think have a good January and just for now keep picking the lineup from the weekend because it seemed to have worked.
Yeah, I think for United to turn things around, it's got to be Mourinho, hasn't it? No one likes watching him play. Yes, did all right against Fulham, but I think everyone's done pretty well against Fulham. But it's the style of play. It's for a club like Man United. It's not what you want to see. Mourinho's a fantastic manager, and I do really like Mourinho. But he's good at, you saw when he was at Inter, being able to go and win the Champions League with that Inter team, putting in incredible defensive performance after defensive performance. But he's not a Manchester United manager. He's not what you want at United. I think Hassan Hüttel's just gone to Southampton. He'd have got the fans on side instantly, just with his pressing game and things like that. You want someone that you can get behind, and Mourinho doesn't have that about him. And you mentioned the transfer window. I feel like the board aren't backing him anymore because you look at Pogba, that's not a Mourinho signing. Mourinho hasn't gone, who's really going to help me with my style of play? Paul Pogba. That's not his sort of player. He wants, as we saw in the summer with the player that he was like the sort of players he was looking at, your Godins, your De Vries, your sort of old-fashioned centre-backs and players that are going to fight for him. So I think if the board is serious about, okay, we're going to keep Mourinho, then show him, back him. Otherwise, it's just sort of denying the inevitable.
Yeah. Right, we'll move it on then to De Classica, as we were talking about earlier. Are Bayern Munich, in danger of falling behind Borussia Dortmund for longer than just this season? It's going to be a short-term or a long-term thing. What do we think?
There's a long rebuilding process that needs to go on. They've been putting it off and putting it off. Bringing in Alphonso Davies, who will come in January, that's a good start. But you can't expect a teenager who's come from Canada, never played in Europe before, to turn things around for them single-handedly. And the club's hierarchy, that seems to be the biggest one. I can't think of a single manager who looks at that job and thinks, yeah, I really want that. You saw it with Thomas Tuchel, actually. They approached him during the summer, and he saw the problems that would eventually come with the club's hierarchy, with the players turning against him, and that's why he wanted to go to PSG. And now you're looking at Tuchel and you're thinking, that's a stroke of genius, not taking that Bayern job. Obviously, they didn't want to get Nagelsmann as well as a head coach because they want to see how he gets on at Leipzig. So they're sort of in a position at the minute where there's no one really to bring in. But the problems also go well beyond just the head coach. I think it'll be a bit of a 3 or 4 year rebuilding process, but they need to understand that it's going to be that as well. Whereas at the minute, they're still in the mindset where we should be walking the Bundesliga. We should be guaranteed to get into the semi-finals of the Champions League. And then our season starts in April. But they're just not in that position at the minute.
John?
Yeah, I think, Ben, as you mentioned in the little segment earlier about just how old that squad has become now. They've had that Robben and Ribéry duet on the left wing since 2009. Maybe, and it's worked for them. It's done what they wanted it to do in that time period, but it probably should have started winding down a couple of years ago. The fact that they had both Kingsley Coman and Douglas Costa, and Costa's now gone and Coman barely gets a game, is almost scandalous. I mean, Robben obviously is still a very, very good player, but he is now leaving Bayern at the end of the season, so that should really be the impetus for them to go out, just get a new, young attacking player who can play there for plenty of years to come, and just that whole squad needs, it's probably not quite Man United levels of refresh, but it definitely needs a refresh to just, otherwise, like you say, with all the young players, Dortmund have got Sancho, Brun Larsen, they're just risking falling further behind, and Dortmund could become the Bayern that just walk the Bundesliga for the next 3 or 4 seasons if they're not careful.
This is an interesting one, actually. Who do we think has made the biggest impact at their club, for better or for worse? Niko Kovac or Lucien Favre?
I think it's got to be Lucien Favre. I think what Kovac has done hasn't necessarily been a bad thing. There have been things. So one thing Kovac likes to do is after a training session, he'll get his players to ride a bike to warm down. And the Bayern Munich squad, being the Bayern Munich squad, aren't having that. They don't like that. So Kovac is trying his best, but he's sort of trying to fight an uphill battle. Whereas Favre, everyone's bought into it. And we saw it when he was at Gladbach. One of the things that he did really interestingly at Gladbach was he used Lars Stindl and Raphael, two players who are very creative but in no means strikers. And they used him. He used them to in sort of a false nine position, and that's how Stindl became the Germany international. It's how both of them became so well known in the Bundesliga. And we've seen it with Goetze this year, with everything that Goetze has gone through. With his muscle illness, and he's now being used as the main man with Paco Alcacer coming off the bench, frees up space. It's just what Favre has done is absolutely incredible, given where they were at this time last year under Peter Bosch. I don't think anyone could have predicted that this would be the stage that they're at.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Ben just because, as we mentioned before, when you look at the Bayern situation, it's not really a lot of it is Kovac's fault because it's just a whole hierarchy that kind of needs to change. Whereas Favre, like you said, everyone's bought in. He's brought in some really good signings. Signing Axel Witsel after the World Cup, just an absolute stroke of genius. How we let him play in China for so long is almost a crime. Just that partnership with Delaney is looking incredible. He's still bringing through a lot of players who kind of had a taste of the first team last season, like Brun Larsen, Sancho, Zagadou at the back, but they're now becoming full members of the squad. So you have to just give so much credit to Favre because he's taken this squad who was looking like the downward spiral was going to go on for a lot longer last season, and now 14 games in, unbeaten. I mean, putting in performances in the Champions League, like beating Atletico Madrid 4-0, something which you'd say it to someone and they'd almost laugh at you if you suggested it. So he deserves all of the credit in the world for what he's done.
Cool. Let's move it on to El Clasico then, the final of our three games. So for the first time in almost 11 years, El Clasico was played without either Messi, who was injured, of course, or Cristiano Ronaldo, as we know, is moved on to Juventus. Does this feel like a change of an era now?
I hope so. I mean, it's been lovely, like the last sort of 10 years or so, with it just being dominated by Messi and Ronaldo, because they're two such outstanding players. I almost feel like the biggest show that it's time for football to move on from then to was actually the Ballon d'Or. It's clearly football's changing. Even though I think most people would still say Messi and Ronaldo are still the best two players in the world. It's almost sad to see, an El Clasico without either of them. So 2009 there would have been Henry playing, Samuel Eto'o, the likes of that, but without Messi or Ronaldo, it feels very strange.
It does feel strange. Jordan, has Ronaldo's move to Juventus been the biggest factor in their poor form this season as well?
I would say it's been a pretty big factor, but I wouldn't say the biggest. I'd say the biggest is what Ben brought up before about how just the other players are underperforming. Because obviously taking Ronaldo out of that team is a big loss, but that is no excuse for the players of the levels that they have to just be losing games. Like when they played at Eibar a few weeks back, losing 3-0. Real Madrid should never in a million years be losing 3-0 anywhere to Eibar, no matter who's on the pitch for Eibar or Madrid. It's just that team kind of has to look, everyone in that team has to look themselves in the mirror. I mean, you've got Luka Modric there, a Ballon d'Or winner who hasn't really performed since coming back from the World Cup. Sergio Ramos, who hasn't performed since that attempted murder on Mo Salah. So they've all got to look at themselves in the mirror and think, just remember who they are. They've still got plenty of time, obviously, they can improve in the league. Barcelona's gap isn't too big. If they win at Huesca today, it'll only be 5 points. So as long as they can just look at themselves in the mirror and just give it a lot better of a go second half of the season, then I think they'll be perfectly fine. But obviously the Ronaldo thing is a big loss, but they'll get over that.
I think it's almost like with Ronaldo going, it's not so much that they've lost something that's overly important to them, but it's more like they've just lost their get out of jail free card. So you knew even if Real Madrid weren't performing well, Ronaldo will pop up with an absolutely world-class goal and he'll get you through that. But no one stepped up to fill their shoes yet, and it was never going to be Vinicius Junior who's just come in from, I think it was Flamengo. Mariano Diaz, who they brought back from Lyon, who did all right at Lyon, but he was never an outstanding player with Lyon. It was still Depay who was the star man. They're missing that star man, and they almost need to work out how to become a team again, having had Ronaldo for the last 10 years.
Well, that's all we've got time for, guys. Thanks very much for joining us. And thank you for joining us as well. As I say, that's all we've got time for. Thanks very much for joining us. But from all of us here in the meantime, it's goodbye.